already signaling that it's going to challenge the appointment of Lindsay Halligan as U.S. attorney. Is there a chance this doesn't even make it to trial?
There's a chance that it doesn't make it to trial because the argument that she's advancing is that Lindsay Halligan's appointment is invalid, and if her appointment is invalid, then the indictment is invalid. We've seen this argument come up a couple of times. It's an argument that James Comey is also lodging against Lindsay Halligan. It's an argument that has also been lodged against Alina Habba in New Jersey, as well as against prosecutors in Nevada. The basic idea here is that the U.S. attorney positions are presidential nominations with Senate confirmation. There is a backup procedure, a statutory scheme known as the Federal Vacancy Reform Act that provides judges, after a certain length of time in the district, the opportunity to make those appointments. Eric Siebert had one of those judicial appointments to that office on an interim basis, and Letitia James and James Comey both are arguing that Lindsay Halligan is not the rightful occupant of that office now.
All right, James Sample, Catherine Falders, thank you both. Taking President Trump's hero and using him against him. If you enter the Oval Office, the largest presidential portrait that hangs to the left of Trump's desk is Ronald Reagan. President Trump loves him. He respects him. And if you ask him about Reagan, he'll tell you that. That's why this anti-tariff ad put out by Ontario has Trump in a tizzy.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse.
And as you can hear, the ad uses parts of Reagan's 1987 speech on tariffs. Trump, calling the ad fake, accusing Canada of trying to manipulate the Supreme Court ahead of a hearing on tariffs, and now says negotiations with Canada are off. The Reagan Foundation says the video is real, but that it misrepresents what the president actually said. If it feels like we've been here before, well, it's because we have. Trump called negotiations off this summer, but backtracked after 3 days. Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Karen Travers. So, Karen, how set in stone do you think this decision is from Trump? And is Canada responding in any way? I can tell you we tried to get in touch with Ontario's prime minister, and he's not talking today.
Set in stone in the sense that the president announced that the trade talks with Canada are terminated, but he is also, according to one of his top economic advisors, Kira, set to meet with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney next week when both of them are in Asia for a World Leaders Summit. So that would certainly sound like trade talks would be back on, because that's what they would be talking about during a conversation at that meeting. This is very similar to what happened, as you mentioned, in the summer when the president in late June said almost the exact same thing, that they were stopping all trade talks because of a potential move by Canada on a digital services tax. Then he and Carney got on the phone, and then the next day trade talks resumed. So we've seen this before, the president not liking what he is seeing coming out of Canada with that ad. Notably, that's from the province of Ontario, not the federal government in Canada. But we'll see if a meeting next week with Carney can get things back on track.
Well, Ontario definitely knew how to get the president riled up. They used his conservative hero against him, clearly, in this ad.
They did, and it got the president's attention. He has seen the ad, and it has now upset him to the point where he is making this threat about the bigger conversations on trade. The Reagan Foundation, the library, has said that this is misrepresenting what this speech was, but it does match the audio and the transcript of what the president then said at the time about tariffs, talking about how this could lead to job losses and tough times for the economy. But, you know, I think the bigger issue here for the president is he has talked about the Supreme Court case that they're going to hear next month on his tariffs as potentially the biggest case that will ever be going before the Supreme Court. Two lower courts have ruled that the president cannot use tariffs under this emergency powers that the administration has tried to push through, those reciprocal tariffs from earlier this year. They say they have the authority to do so. Two courts, though, have said they do not. So this is a very big case for the president's authority on tariffs and trade. He has said if you don't have this ability, you don't have a country anymore, that all of their economic policy is based around this. So clearly he is paying very close attention to anything that might influence the case, in his words, because that's what he was saying. The Supreme Court justices could be unduly influenced by this ad.
And at the end of the day, we talked about how this can impact all of us and what we buy from Canada. What do you think? What could the impact be on our biggest trading partner?
I think that ultimately we're going to see the two leaders talk next week on the sidelines of that APEC summit in South Korea, and things will get back on track in the sense that they'll keep talking about trade. They're not going to work everything out next week during that meeting because, Kira, there are bigger negotiations happening right now on that U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement that is up for renegotiation next year. That is the big thing that the president did during his first term. He has suggested maybe you just scrap it entirely. There are tariffs on Canada goods coming into this country that Canada would like to see lowered. We'll see if Carney has any success with that next week.
Stay tuned. Karen Travers from the White House. Karen, thank you. Furloughs, service risks, and bipartisan standoff. It is day 24 of the second longest shutdown in U.S. history, and over 500,000 federal workers are missing their first full paycheck today. So with no votes expected from the Senate, federal workers like Imelda Avila Thomas at the Department of Labor are left stranded and paycheckless, forced to find ways to support the family with no end in sight. And for Imelda, who comes from a dual federal worker household, this shutdown impacts not only her, but her entire family, and that includes her husband. Imelda Avila Thomas, the AFGE Local 2139 president and a furloughed Department of Labor employee, joins me now. Imelda, you educate the public about labor laws and resources. That's your job. Without your community outreach, just put into perspective how dangerous this could be for your employees who don't know their rights.
Well, it would be for employees and employers that may not be aware of their rights or responsibilities with, complying with some of the most stringent labor laws that we enforce. So it could be regarding child labor, regarding agriculture. So it makes a big impact.
Well, the Trump administration has mentioned that furloughed employees may not get back pay. Let's talk about how damaging that could be for you and all your coworkers at this point.
Absolutely. Our members come from very different backgrounds, and we have single income households. We have individuals that are taking care of family members that cannot take care of themselves. So this is huge. We're ready to get back to work. We're available to get back to work. And it's not lack of us wanting to get back to work. We're actually just sitting here waiting for us to get back. And it hurts. It hurts a lot for us not to have that money and for us not to be able to supply the things that our family needs.
And as we said, you're a dual federal worker household. How do you and your husband manage this now? Tell me what it's like day by day, how you're talking to each other, planning for this with all this uncertainty. And what are you telling your kids?
Well, we have, today's our daughter's 12th birthday. So I was actually pregnant with her during the 2013 furlough. And she understands. And her biggest thing is, Mommy, if I don't do my homework, if I don't do my job, there's consequences, right? And how come those people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing so that you get back to work? And I said, that's a good point.
Wow. What a smart young lady. And also, if this becomes the longest shutdown in U.S. history, let's talk about the holidays. I know it's early, and there is a chance, that things can get back up and running by Thanksgiving, by Christmas. But you do have a young daughter, and Christmas is a big deal, and that Christmas list means a lot to kids.
It does. But I think the day to day, and these kids are a lot smarter sometimes than what we think. And like I said, today's her birthday, and all she wants is just to go to dinner, and we're going to come back and play trivia. So she understands. And if an 12-year-old understands, I think we understand as well. So The material stuff, I think we could go without, but we just need to get back to work.
Amen to that. And sometimes this is just doubling down on how important it is to be together, right, as a family, have family dinner and play games. It sounds so old school, but I am with you as a mom. It's probably my most favorite thing with the family. And we want to stay in touch with you, Imelda. Let us know how things are going. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. X-ray tables, secret shuffling machines, and decoy cell phones. How an FBI indictment says the NBA stars and mobsters carried out such a stunning gambling scheme. It comes after the New York AG took on the Trump Organization in a massive civil fraud trial in 2023. X-ray tables, secret shuffling machines, and decoy cell phones. It's the NBA meets mafia gambling scandal that's rocking the sports world. In a week where the NBA should have been focused on the start of a new season, the league instead playing defense over sprawling federal cases involving a head coach, a player, and mobsters. Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups, a basketball Hall of Famer, accused by federal prosecutors of teaming with the mafia in complex illegal poker schemes. Then, in what the feds call an overlapping case, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier charged over prop betting on NBA games. Both Rozier and Billups denying the allegations and vowing to fight in court. Their cases shining a light on just how intertwined sports and gambling have become. Jared Smith, a betting analyst for Fox Sports Radio in Las Vegas, joins me now. So, Jared, I guess let's start with Rozier here and his case, because a lot of critics say that this kind of thing is just inevitable with legalized sports betting. But you say legalization is actually why they were caught. So give me your thought process here.
Yeah, Kara, this is definitely a mess for the NBA, especially during opening week. But the counter argument is, oh, well, all of this sports betting, right? We see the promos on TV all the time, pretty much every commercial break. You're seeing some kind of sports book commercial. People are kind of associating that as the reason why the bad actors are doing bad actor things. But when you look deeper into it, it's actually the regulation, right? With legalization, we're getting a lot more regulation on who's making bets, what kind of bets they're making, and where those bets are coming from. And that is actually one of the reasons why I think this case was unraveled. If there isn't legalization, the bets are still being made, right? We've watched all the casino movies, all the mob movies. They're still operating in this way. But when you have legalization in a regulated market, you can control things a little bit better. And I think that is one of the big reasons why this case was able to be uncovered as quickly as it was.
So then do you think that this was worse before sports gambling was legalized and we just, didn't know about it?
Yes. I think this has been going on for years, right? They did a 30 for 30 on ESPN about it. And, if you're a big fan of the movie Goodfellas, it was actually mentioned, right? The Boston College college basketball fixing scandal that took place. We had Tim Donaghy in the early 2000s in the NBA. It does seem like basketball is a really difficult sport to manage because of just how many points are scored and how many possessions are had throughout the course of a game. So these things do happen, but now that we have legalization, it is a little bit easier. I'm not saying it's never going to happen because it's always, again, bad actors are going to do bad actor things, but I do think the legalization is actually helping regulators catch some of these criminals.
All right, let's talk about prop bets for a minute. Senator Dick Durbin has now floated restrictions on prop bets as a way to crack down on this. And for those that don't know what it is, prop bets are bets placed on the performance of an individual player. So what do you think? Could that help?
I think it could help to an extent, but again, the prop bets are still going to be available in the offshore unregulated market. So it's almost like turning off the security cameras. I think people are still going to make the bets if they're not legal in this country. And it's, again, going to be harder to catch some of these, bad actors doing these things. So I am a little bit more on the sense of I would rather regulate the amount you can bet on a prop. So, for instance, right now, you can bet a large amount on a prop bet. I would rather have regulation that says you can only bet X amount. Because, again, if you can only bet $100, $200, maybe up to a few $100s on a prop bet, it's going to de-incentivize a criminal from trying to, rob that market because there's just not that much money in the piggy bank. So I'm in favor of regulating prop bets, but I think eliminating them completely, it goes back to the argument, every time someone gets a DUI, are we going to eliminate alcohol and ban alcohol? Like, we've been down this road before. I just don't think it works in this country. I think we need to just make it a little bit harder to get down large amounts of money on these very micro specific markets. And I think that will mitigate the issue a little bit.
I mean, sports gambling is a multi-billion-dollar business. It's pretty crazy when you find out all those that get involved and are involved. Jared Smith, great to have you. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Straight ahead. It was the perfect rescue. So who do you call when your frantic feline is stuck 60 feet up in the air? We'll tell you next. Some other headlines we're tracking for you this hour. Operations resuming at Alaska Airlines after a significant IT outage causing an 8-hour system-wide ground stop for both Alaska and Horizon, leaving a lot of frustrated travelers stranded for hours. The exact details on what caused the outage are still unclear, but it's now the second time this year Alaska has had to issue a ground stop because of an IT problem. The airline is telling passengers to expect delays today. Thieves in Florida taking Just Do It to a whole new level. Check this out. Mass robbers were able to cut through the roof of a Florida mall in Jensen Beach before dropping down to steal 500 pairs of Nike and New Balance sneakers. The daring robbery was like a scene straight out of a movie, according to cops, and then the thieves just escaped in a getaway car. Stolen shoes are estimated to be worth nearly $500,000. And talk about a sweet and daring rescue. An expert climber in Ohio used all his skills to save a cat who was stuck up in a tree for 4 days, at least. Well, the cat managed to get higher than expected after a roofer attempted to save her, making the rescue almost impossible as she clung to the top branches. But the expert climber got to the very top with all his tools to help save the cat. I guess a few sweet treats were used as well. She's now back into her owner's arms, as you can see. They had a very sweet reunion. Well, it's the birthplace of professional football, the first man to land on the moon, and home to the second oldest zoo in America. It's time for the latest stop in our 50 States in 50 Weeks series, and today we're heading to the Buckeye State, and that's where we find our ABC News Live weekend anchor, Whit Johnson, at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Welcome to Ohio, the Buckeye State, named after the tree of the same name. But catch this, Brutus Buckeye is also the mascot for The Ohio State University, where football is a way of life. Home to the Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals, Ohio was the birthplace of professional football. The city of Canton is home to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where our own Michael Strahan was enshrined in 2014. But one Hall of Fame isn't enough for this state. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland. Ohio even has its own official rock and roll song, Hang On Sloopy. And even though Ohio became the 17th state to join the U.S. in 1803, a congressional oversight meant it wasn't until 150 years later when its statehood was finally signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1953. Ohio is also the setting for some of television's biggest shows like Ohio! Speaking of showbiz, some big names like Paul Newman and Steven Spielberg hail from Ohio.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Not to mention basketball greats LeBron James and Steph Curry, and the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It's no wonder Ohio is known as the heart of it all.
All right, let's all go to Ohio. Looks like fun. Johnson, thank you. So the news never stops, clearly. You can find us anywhere you stream live news. And if you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app and abcnews.com as well. I'm Kira Phillips. Glad you're with us. A lot more news on this Friday. Don't go far.